We're here in Liberty Township at the Liberty Center in Ohio. Just drove from West Virginia. And as I think about Liberty, I think about, well, the place that we just came from. We were just recently, a few days ago, staying in Philadelphia with the Liberty Bell. In fact, on my keys, I have a little Liberty Bell, and it's cracked. Our Liberty isn't perfect, but we definitely need it. When I think of Liberty, I think of freedom. I think of that famous quote, "Give me liberty or give me death." Yet it seems like recently a lot of our liberties have been taken away from us. It seems like recently we are more and more becoming under tyranny. And I just want to encourage you guys, if there was ever a time to stand up, this is the time to stand up. To stand up for our liberty, for our freedoms, for our true independence. You see, as we're going from state to state, we're seeing certain states that are really, really free. Really, really, well, they're free, especially places like Texas. But then as we go to other states, places like Boston, New York, oh my gosh, even Philadelphia, there's not the same amount of freedoms. And as we drive from state to state, I think yesterday we drove through 4 states. Each time we stop at a gas station, I kind of walk in, I'm like, am I free here? Or do I need to be wearing something on my face or have something have been put into my arm, if you know what I mean? One state that's really, really free is Texas. And Texas, well, I believe there's something about ready to go before the Supreme Court regarding abortion. It's coming from Texas that could change our nation. One of the things that we've been really passionate about ever since we wrote the song Protesters, and long before that, is the issue of being pro-life. Ziza, come on over here, baby. Being pro-life. And here's a great reason why we're pro-life. Look at this precious little one. She is the apple of our eye. This hair, don't you just want to do this to it? And I want to kiss her like all day. Can I kiss you on the forehead? And as we think about our daughter, Ziza, we also think about our, what could have been a son, Zebulon, who, the child did not make it. We had a miscarriage. I think about all those ladies that are having miscarriages. Recently, there's an 80% increase in miscarriages. I don't know if you know that amongst certain people that have had certain things happen recently. It's tough. I think about abortion. I think abortion is murder. Do you think abortion is murder? Do you think that half of the black babies in New York should be killed? Well, they are right now. They are through abortion. Could you imagine a time when abortion isn't just an industry, but it's a factory? Could you imagine if there was a time when they took all these unborn fetuses and they literally cut them up and sucked them out, and then they took those body parts and sold them? Could you imagine that? That would be horrible if that happened. And then if they took those body parts, if some companies took those body parts and did experiments with them and used the very fetal tissue from this aborted fetus to create some sort of new compound that was then put into you. Could you imagine that? That would be horrible. And then imagine if every one of the companies either tested with it or actually used that aborted fetus tissue and or DNA, and every one of those companies put it in there. And then imagine if our government said we did not have the liberty to choose not to have that put in us. That would be horrible. Imagine if our government said certain people, even if they conscientiously object, even if they don't believe it is good for their body because their body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, or they don't want to be a part of this abortion factory, this killing factory, this, imagine if our government said, you will lose your job as, you name it, a military person, or you will lose your job as a hospital worker, even though you've been helping people for a year and a half without having to get that. Imagine that. That would be horrible. At that very moment, I would have to say, where is our, as I pull it out of my pocket, where is our liberty? Is it really liberty and justice for all? Imagine if the people who said they didn't want to get that were like 60, 70% black. Does their opinion matter? Or we're Christian. Do they have the freedom to conscientiously object? Does their opinion matter? Do we really have liberty? As I'm standing here at Liberty Center in Liberty Township of Ohio, I'm asking you, do you have a liberty? Or are you just going to bow? People have the freedom to do whatever they want with their bodies, but what they do with their bodies can affect what happens to others' bodies. And you have to ask yourself, where does this compound come from? I'm being very creative in using words that will not be triggering certain things, but I need you to ask yourself, imagine if there was this time where this abortion, this killing factory, they literally took that from those dead babies and then mandated it for travel to Europe, mandated it to work for our government, mandated it for your kid to go to school. It's time to stand. It's time to stand for liberty. For all, not just for those that have complied.